welcome back to my channel. So I guess it's just carrying on talking about random stuff, autism, empathy, etc. Carrying on discussing this topic. I just wanted to respond to one of your comments about, I think one of you said in your comments, you said, well, of course, autism, you have to meet the autism criteria. You know, if someone has a heart attack, you'd have to meet the criteria for a heart attack and so on. Obviously, yes, I completely agree with you. I never said that. When I said, I think there's a bit of confusion here. When I said autism is not a criteria tick box, I didn't mean that the criteria aren't important. You have to meet the criteria to be autistic, obviously. What I meant, as is the case for all medical conditions, what I meant is that the criteria on their own is not enough. You know, it's not just a case of a sort of lay person, say any old person, taking the criteria out of the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, taking the criteria out of the DSM-5, scanning it, and like noticing all of the signs in, say, someone they know, like a friend or acquaintance or something, and thinking, I'm going to diagnose them autistic. They don't need to go to be assessed because I can read the criteria and it looks to me like they're autistic, so they're autistic. I'm giving them that diagnosis. You know, it's not the case that you can't do that, and neither can a person self-diagnose themselves using that criteria. That's what I meant by it not being a tick box, and I meant that any clinician worth their salt won't just be going down the criteria and like you know, making snap kind of judgments. You know, they won't just be like reading a criteria and kind of ticking it off each one. Or at least not a good clinician. A good clinician wouldn't do that. Instead, they have to ask very probing questions, going into quite some depth about the person's history, about the quality of their friendships. You know, it's kind of a bit like Socratic questioning in a sense. You know, so someone might say they've had friends that might, you know, if they're going by a tick box, they wouldn't meet the part of the criteria that says difficulties with friendship. I think that's under. I can't remember what part of the criteria it is, but there is a part of the criteria, I think it might be the social interaction bit, there is a part of the criteria that references difficulties in relationships, but an autistic person might start saying about all the friends they've had. A bad clinician might give them an X across there. They don't meet that part of the criteria. A good clinician, who won't be using the criteria as a checklist, will delve deeper and will ask them about the quality of their friendships. It might turn out that they've had very good and successful friendships without any problems in theory of mind, in which case, yes, they won't meet that part of the criteria and they're probably not autistic. But if it actually turns out that, okay, so on the face of it, they've had friendships, but it turns out that those friendships have only lasted like, I don't know, a week or something, because a person couldn't maintain them. So yes, they've had lots of friendships, but the quality has been really impaired, then actually that person could still be autistic. So it requires in-depth questioning. The clinician can't, that's what I meant by the criteria not being a checklist. I meant you need to have a trained, qualified clinician who knows what questions to ask, who delves deep into the person's history, who ensures that this problem with theory of mind is evident, you know, from a very young age, that it's developmental, that it isn't caused by another condition. You know, they have to exclude other conditions that might mimic autism, and that takes a trained clinician to do that. And even trained clinicians can sometimes get it wrong. But as long as the trained clinician, you know, has all of the evidence in front of them, and is delving deep into it, a bit like a scientist, and the more evidence, obviously, the sounder the diagnosis. Obviously, you know, a diagnosis is only as good as the evidence, essentially. So obviously, the more evidence you have, the sounder the diagnosis. You know, be that, say, school reports, other people's experiences of being with you. You know, because autism is a social disability. Obviously, you can't just rely on a person. That's why self-diagnosis, in particular for autism, is so is so wrong. I mean, it's wrong for any condition, but particularly for autism, because it's a social condition, it's dialectic. Autism becomes autism only in the context of being around other people. So it's vitally important that other people are there to provide their own experiences of what it's like being around the autistic person. You can't just take the person's own, a person might say, look, I have lots of difficulties socially, blah, blah, blah. But if the other people, at the end of the day, you need evidence, and, you need another person, another party to actually, who's trained to act as the kind of, what's the word, to sort of, because autism is a serious condition, right? I mean, people study autism. It's something that is a medical condition, and it requires a lot of serious assessment to ascertain whether or not the person actually meets the criteria. That's what I meant by criteria not being a checklist. You can't just tick it off. You have to have the evidence there. You have to ask the probing questions. You can't take things like friendship at face value. You have to go deeper. Again, the person might be making eye contact, so they might go on X on that. If you're going by checklist, look, they make eye contact. Oh, they cross on that. They don't meet that part of the criteria. But if you're not using it as a checklist, then you start to look at the quality of the eye contact. How intense is it? How fleeting? Is the person actually faking eye contact? Is it genuine eye contact? How tiring are they finding? You have to ask all these other questions to get the bigger picture. That's what I meant by the criteria not being a checklist. I hope I've made myself clear, because I think I was misinterpreted, at least by one person, but I hope I've clarified it. Criteria is important. I never said the criteria is not important. You have to meet the criteria. I said it is not a tick box. That's what I said. Well, I hope I've clarified that, in case any other people watching are confused. I don't want to confuse anyone. That's what I wanted to get at. The other thing I wanted to address is, I know one of you was saying how I seem to be turning autism into an identity by talking about it a lot or something. I'm not quite entirely sure. At the end of the day, I don't care. If people think I'm turning it into identity, I don't care. But it's not. Of course, it's part of me. It's as much an identity as the colour of my hair. I've got brown hair. It's as much an identity as the fact I'm a woman. That's part of my identity. I could talk about feminist issues if I wanted to. I could have another channel talking just about women's issues if I wanted to. That doesn't make my womanhood the sole part of my identity, just because I might decide to create a YouTube channel talking about feminism or women's issues. I talk about autism, which is a part of my identity, but not the whole of who I am, because I'm obviously, as I'm sure any of you watching this will understand, I'm way more than my autism. I'm a person, I have interests. I'm just like any other person. I'm not defined by any one part of my identity. But I choose to talk about autism on this channel a lot, because I want to reach out to other people. Because autism is an important topic, because I'm interested in autism. If I didn't have autism, I might also be interested in autism. People, would it make any difference if it's a non-autistic person talking about autism? Would you say is then becoming part of their identity? No. Autism is just an interest. I've got autism, I'm autistic, and I like to talk about autism, and I'm interested in autism. I'm entitled to be interested in autism. If I want to be interested in autism, I'm entitled to be interested in autism. That doesn't make my life defined by autism, for crying out loud. That'd be like saying, if I want to talk about feminism, another interesting topic, that my life is defined by being a woman. No, it's not. But I quite like talking about those things, and if I want to talk about it, that's up to me at the end of the day. And I hope I'm, at the end of the day, and I hope I'm benefiting other people. And there's lots of people out there who autistic and not autistic, who might be interested in autism, and I feel it's important to talk about it, and it's important to, just talk about it essentially. So I hope I've cleared that up. But I'm going to carry on talking about autism, because that's what this channel is about. If I want to talk exclusively about, say, other parts of my life, like cooking and all the other things I like, cooking, knitting, and things like that, I could have a channel dedicated exclusively to those areas of my life if I wanted to. But but obviously autism is a big part of my life, and it kind of colours a lot of my life and shapes a lot of my life, and I like talking about it. And if I want to talk about it, like I said, I'm allowed to do so. And if other people think I'm turning it into identity, they can think what they like. It doesn't stop me wanting to talk about it, and quite frankly, I don't actually care. At the end of the day, I can talk about what I want to talk about. And I really do not care, and I don't care what people say or think about me. I do what I want to do. So basically, that's it. But anyway, moving over to video number 2 now, because I just want to carry on talking about I want to carry on video number 2 now, talking a little bit more about empathy. So moving over to video number 2.